Well, tomorrow, the 28th of September 2020, there is a possibility of a shutdown of the country as a result of labor workers' planned strike. The organized labor are threatened to down tool from tomorrow in what they say is an action on the recent increase in electricity tariff and the removal of petrol subsidy, which of course given rise to the hike in the price of fuel. Last Friday, the federal government held a meeting for several hours with the leaders of the labor unions, but it appears it was not sufficient to convince the unions to stop the imminent strike action. We understand that there have been 2 court actions against the labor to stop the strike. But today, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, met with the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC. The meeting, which held at the National Assembly Complex in Abuja, is an attempt to mediate and broker an amicable solution to the impasse between organized labor and the federal government over the increase in electricity tariff and the removal of petrol subsidy. Well, Mr. Gbajabiamila then met the Vice President and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa. As we speak, the federal government is meeting with labor unions to avert planned strike billed for tomorrow. But it appears the labor unions are resolute before that meeting that they will go on with the strike. At a press conference in Lagos, the mobilization seems to have been on the way and well planned, and they say that there is no going back unless the government reverses the hike in prices of fuel and electricity tariff. By the way, the Attorney General of the Federation and another group of lawyers have gone to court to stop the action. They've gotten an injunction of court. We'll explore all these angles and see ways to chart a way forward for the Nigerian people, because it looks so much that the person or the people that will be at the long end of the stick will be the average Nigerians. Millions of you are watching right now. I'm being joined on the program tonight. One of the lawyers who went to court, Mr. Sanusi Musa, is a lawyer and the lawyer to the plaintiff against, of course, the labor in this matter. He joins us from Abuja, and also is Mr. Sheun Bisuga, a public affairs analyst. Here in our Lagos studio is a senior lawyer, Mr. Jiti Ogunye. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
Perhaps it's a good way to start with those who went to court to stop the labor. Mr. Musa, can you give us a sense of why you went to court and the reason why you sought to get an injunction to stop the labor from striking from tomorrow?
The issue is simple. It is our belief that the issue of deregulation of the oil sector, as well as the price hike in the electricity tariff, which is done by the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission pursuant to its powers under Section 76 of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act. These are not issues that can be strictly called a labor dispute. So, in other words, it is not within the contemplation of either Trade Dispute Act or Trade Union Act for the organized labor to embark on strike on purely economic policy issues. So, the essence of any strike should be done by the organized labor. It has to be in connection with the contract of employment between its members and their employers. So, but where the labor decide to take up issues that are ultra vires its own powers, then I don't think other Nigerians will sit and allow it to do that. For instance, my client are people that the person is employer of labor. He has his shop. He employed people to work there. And with no reason, then organized labor will come and close all the shops and force people out of their people. I mean, even those that are employed in the organized sector where they have organizations, unions that affiliate labor, me as an employee, I have the right under the Constitution to say I'm not a member. I don't want to be a member of any trade union. And if the unions call for a strike, I, as somebody who is not their member, I have a right to go for my duties. So what we want the court to interpret is whether by the provision of the Trade Union Act and the Trade Dispute Act, the issue of the regulation of the oil sector, as well as the increase in the tariff of the electricity, are issues that within the contemplation of a labor dispute. Because, it makes no sense. For instance, if today the price of petroleum in the international market goes down, and the price of petroleum in Nigeria goes to, let's say, 100 naira, will the labor now insist that we must go on strike because they want the price of petroleum to be at 145 naira?
Mr.
I
Musa,
don't think that will
me,
make any sense.
all right. So let's clarify the issue. I know you went to the normal court, the usual court. The Attorney General, I understand, went to the industrial court. In your case, you are asking that the court should interpret the issue of the strike, not protest. You are not asking this court to stop the protest. Clarify for us.
Are before the National Industrial Court. And what we are asking the court is for the interpretation of Section 48 of the Trade Union Act, Section 54 of the Trade Dispute Act, and Section 31. And to see whether, by the provision of this act, the labor unions can embark on strike on issue of economic policy. Issue of protest is not what we are before court. But we have specifically, because we have also sued the Inspector General of Police and the Director General of the State Security Services, that they have a duty to provide protection for those ordinary Nigerians who want to go about their normal businesses, for those who want to open their shops, for those who want to go to the market, for those who want to use their taxi to carry people. I mean, if those who said they want to go on, they want to do a protest, they cannot stop them. With the order given by the National Industrial Court has mandated the Nigerian Inspector General of Police, as well as the Department of Security Services, to provide protection for those Nigerians who want to go about
since
their
you've
normal
clarified for
services.
us, let's get some
so
reaction
that they should not
on,
be intimidated, they should not be harassed by the labor unions, because this is normally their character. They want to go and close market, to close people's shop, to stop buses and taxis from working. That's
since you've done that, let's get reaction to your action. Just a moment, Mr. Musa. Let's allow Mr. Ogunye to weigh in. Mr. Ogunye, give us a sense of what is happening in the country today. The Labour says, look, government, reverse your action on the prices of fuel and electricity tariff. And the Attorney General had gone to God to get an injunction. And the issue here is that, can the Labour rightfully, do they have the right to shut down the country or shut down activities in the country based on issues of economic policy, like Mr. Musa has said tonight on the program? Do they have that jurisdiction outside of labor matters?
Well, I don't want us to be too unnecessarily pedantic about this matter. Nigerians, under the Constitution, have the right to associate, and they have the right to express themselves. I'm referencing Section 39, right to freedom of expression and right to freedom of association, under Section 40. And so we must bear in mind that Nigerian workers, whether they are unionized under their various industrial unions or under their trade union centers like TUC or the NLC, they have the right as Nigerians to exercise the rights to withdraw their services and all that. And so the dichotomy that has been drawn between purely trade union matters, issue of collective bargaining, issue of negotiating wages and all that, and economic issues that labor should never talk about is neither here nor there. If government recognizes that labor does not have the jurisdiction to talk on this matter, why would government even indulge them with the issue of negotiation? This government won't be the first government that will be negotiating with labor over strike, over increasing the prices of petroleum products. You thought that those previous government didn't know the law, or the previous Attorney General didn't know the law? Look,
in 2012, it wasn't the Labour that led. Labour was part of it.
Labor was part of. I'm talking about the previous one.
Well, I'm just saying a similar situation now in terms of economic policies. 2012 was perhaps the closest that we are seeing in magnitude.
What I'm saying is that right from when we had this democracy throughout the Obasanjo years, Labour had always played a central role on the issue of increasing prices of petroleum products. And not on any of the occasions will you have government saying that you have no local standard, you have no jurisdiction to even dabble into this matter. So you cannot even talk about it. Instead, you have government negotiating with them. And as we speak, there is still a speculation that they are locked up in a meeting. Earlier today, there was still a meeting. And that must tell you something, that even when you have a party like the one being represented by my learned friend, who's spoken eloquently from your Abuja studio, when you have them in court, and when you have the federal government in court, after submitting issues to court for determination or adjudication, after procuring an order of interim injunction ex parte from the court, you will imagine that they should trust the court process enough not to resort to self-help by again engaging labor in discussion. So why do they do that? Why do they do that? They do that to avert a strike, right? Meaning that they recognize from the word go that even while they are going to court, they are intent on using the court to scot to a strike. So if you knew that you still have to have a discussion, why couldn't you settle down with the issue of discussion, meaningful dialogue, and have a compromise?
Is it some kind of respect for the rule of law you were referring to it?
Exactly. What I'm saying is that it worked both ways. You went to court because you trust the court. You have access to the court. And you want the court to settle the matter as an arbiter, right? You surrender the matter to the court. And the court had granted your prayer by granting you an order ex parte. So why can't you leave it in the hand of the court? Why can't you leave the court to enforce its order if, for example, they defy the court? Why are you straddling? Why are you going back to them, resorting to self-help, to negotiate with them again?
Because we understand that the police have said they will ensure that the orders of court will be obeyed. And so invariably, what I'm imagining in my head is, should anybody go out to protest tomorrow or shut down anywhere, there might be action, because there are series of letters in the mobilization. There might be some police civil action.
People talk as if we don't live in this country. In the past, the police threatened brimstone and fire on the eve of strike. It's not even in the interest of the police to be issuing threats to the Nigerian people now. It's not. We're facing a delicate situation. Police can say, yes, we maintain law and order and all that. So, as big as Nigeria is, if in all the 36 states, people troop to the streets and they protest. So what would the police do? Or if people want to withdraw their services and say that they won't go to work, would the police barge into people's houses and force them to go to work? That's why I'm saying that government should not be issuing threats and then engage in dialogue at the same time. That's contradictory in terms. If you want to embrace dialogue wholesomely, do so. And as for the party
but the law of strategy says you throw everything at it. Mr. Ogunye, just remember, let me bring Mr. Bisuga. And the question I'll be asking you is the fact that the Labour had accused government that government did not consult before they took the action in the increase of the tariff on electricity and the fuel price. in this sense, the question a lot of people are asking, if you're going to do this, what are the buffers that you have? Does the government have any buffer for the average people? Let's get back to the conversation. Before that break, I was going to bring on Mr. Seun Bisuga, who is a public affairs analyst. Of course, we've heard from Mr. Sunusi Musa, a lawyer, and Mr. Jiti Ogunye. Thank you so much. Mr. Bisuga, give us a sense of the question on the lips of so many Nigerians that if government is doing all of that, perhaps for those who agree with the narrative that the reason for the hike in price is justified, and the big question will be, what are the buffers in the likelihood of hike in the price of food and a hike in the price of transport and all of that?
Yeah, thank you, Seun. So before the international markets forced the government to increase oil prices, the Buhari administration has set in motion, the National Economic Sustainability Plan, which was targeted to ease and cushion the effect of COVID-19. And millions of Nigerians are going to benefit from this scheme by the federal government. So right now, the Survival Fund, which is part of the National Sustainability Plan, is ongoing. And the first phase of it, the payroll support, is already running now. A lot of private schools, a lot of hospitality businesses, a lot of law firms, a lot of factories are already registering on the website www.survivalfundapplication.com. And that's just one part of it. So a lot of Nigerians are going to benefit. There are artisans, mechanics, drivers are also going to benefit. There are people who already have businesses that are not registered right now. The federal government has earmarked 250,000 slots. So if you have a business, you're not registered, federal government is going to make it easy for you by registering free of charge. Then MSMEs in Nigeria, over 1 million plus, are going to also benefit from the survival fund. So the plan by the government is to say, see, a lot of people have been hit by COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs, and the federal government is saying for 3 months, I'm going to pay the salary of private school teachers. We're going to pay for those in the hotels business and those in the hospitals. So the federal government has developed a robust plan that's going to cover millions of Nigeria across every state evenly. And that is what the Survival Fund is all about.
Mr. Bisuga, this is perhaps very new to the ears of a lot of Nigerians, millions of them, who think that, well, if government has all of these plans, I'm not sure Labour is aware of it. How is the government going to go about it? That's a big question. If government is giving an average Nigerian money and they are not aware and they do not know how to go about it, has this been on the ground? When did it all start?
So it started with COVID-19. Like, globally, almost every country in the world had a stimulus plan, a palliative of some sorts for their citizens. And Nigerian government is no different. And so when COVID-19 hits, in the second month, the president told the vice president to, come up with the economic sustainability plan, which he also chairs right now. And it's been on for a couple of weeks. And that's why, like I said, if you go to the website, that is survivalfundapplication.com, and every Nigerian has access to it. It's not about labor, it's not about lawmakers, it's not about governors. No, if you're a Nigerian, there is something for you there, and that's why it cuts across the strata. So the mechanics who you use, the artisans, the carpenters, the plumbers, the hairdressers who are around your house, you can tell them. Those who cannot do it, you can help them do it. You understand? Because the federal government is going to give them a grant of 30,000. It's a one-off grant to say, okay, we understand that you've been hit by COVID, and this is 30,000 naira for you. And there are others, people who have small businesses. You understand, the MSMEs. You know, the federal government has said, okay, we are going to pick 100,000 MSMEs. So you have to go and apply on the website. When you apply and your application is accepted by the government, you are going to get a one-off grant of 50,000 for 100,000 MSMEs. But for the private schools and for the hospitals, you are going to be paid for 3 months, because you understand that most of these businesses can't maintain, you know, salaries because of the COVID. So the government is saying, see, we don't want you people to sack people. What we want to do is we want to keep the jobs and want to create more jobs.
Mr.
And the only way we can do it is by directly affecting the lives of people.
Mr. Bisuga, don't let us mix things up. We know the effect of COVID-19. It's been with us from the early part of this year, since about March or so, when Nigeria started battling with it. But we're talking specifically in relation to the recent increase in the price of fuel, which is the reason why Labour is saying they're going to go on strike. The issue of the electricity tariff is just a few days ago or a few weeks ago that these all just started. So what is government's direct action in these two areas? And these are the issues that Labour has brought to the table. Does government have plan directly as buffer for these two issues?
Seun, like you rightly know, the president has stated categorically that if you don't receive more than 12 hours of electricity, you're not affected by the review of electricity. So most Nigerians, to be fair, are not going to be affected. And I think the DISCOs and even the NERC has done a very good job to break this down. So only those who get 12 hours and above will be affected by the electricity. And secondly, if you're not metered, you're also not going to be affected at all. So it's for those who are metered. So if you're on estimated billing, there is no way. And the president stated categorically that there is no way you'll be affected by it. So the people who are not metered are not going to be affected. And that's why he has ordered that more meters be brought in. He has signed a 1-year waiver to say, see, every Nigerian should be metered. It's only when they are metered that you know that you should get the new tariff. And as for for fuel hike, which I expect Labour to also know, the fuel prices are dictated by the international market. And if you go and look at the comparative analysis, Nigeria is number 8 in the world, cheapest oil selling per liter, by the cheapest. So if you look at the modalities, you'll find out and see, even at 162 naira, we are the 8th cheapest selling, even cheaper than people who have working refineries, who have everything, So you see that the federal government for a long time has cushioned the effect of oil prices. And that's what we must always understand, that we don't operate in a silo. There's a comparative analysis that we always have to look at when we are making some of these decisions. So when Labour is trying to go on strike, you should look at what's happening in France, in the United States, in the United Kingdom. This is where they pay almost 3 times the price that we pay for a litre of fuel.
All right.
So the federal
Mr.
government,
Bisuga,
over a period
just
of
for a
time,
moment,
has made sure that we don't...
Yeah. Just a moment. Let me get the other panelists on the program back into the conversation. Quickly, let me get Mr. Sunusi Musa's take on what is happening. You've gone to court. This is a case between the federal government and Labour. What bothers some lawyers is that what would be your client's own in the matter, because you're neither Labour nor the federal government. Because like they say in law, what do they call it now? Do you have the local standing in the matter? And with what is happening, can you actually stop Labour from strike tomorrow?
Exactly. This is the issue. Because let me just clarify what my learned senior is saying. Because our action is not the one instituted by the Attorney General of the Federation. In this action by my client, we are suing the Attorney General, we are suing the Minister of Labour, because we, in our understanding, even the conciliation process going on between the federal government and the Labour is illegal. Because the issue is not a Labour matter. And like you said, if there is a dispute between federal government and Labour, it's just support that it is purely an issue of the employers, the relationship between employer and employer. But whereby a warning is issued, a notice is issued that market are going to be closed. How does somebody who has a shop in the market, like my client, who runs a shop where he has tailors, he paid them salaries, he just come out from the COVID-19, where they stayed for about 3 months without work, and he's economic is trying to pick up. Just labor coming to say that they must shut up their shops. For what? I mean,
let me still bring into the conversation.
And
what
like,
I was going to, the legal word I was
look,
going to remember is Medicine Interloper. With what is, you heard what Mr. Bisuga said about the buffers that the government has created, and also I'd like you to react with what to what Mr. Musa has also said in terms of why they went to court and their intentions.
Well, a number of things. Nigerians have the right to go to court, and I know that the issue of local standard has been liberalized. Nigerians pay taxes. They can go to court to seek redress if they feel aggrieved. But I have always maintained the view, number one, that our courts should use ex parte orders sparingly. When an organ was going to be booted out of the judiciary, the federal government, when issues had been joined, when he had been arraigned in court, went behind him to obtain an ex parte order to compel his suspension. When the political parties were fighting APC the other time, they were obtaining ex parte order left, right, and center. So much so that the chief judge of the Federal Capital Territory High Court had to issue a practice direction that you shouldn't do that. Now a strike is coming, you've dashed to court to obtain 2 orders actually of injunction. And the court granted the order. Why wouldn't a court looking at these just go and put them on notice? Don't drag us into this matter. I'm just saying, because the court has a duty not to cut the possible disobedience of his order. This is political matter. Nigerians have the right to protest. Nigerians have their back against the wall right now because of these increases. And so government ought to engage. In fact, government ought to be happy that there's a face to an agitation and that it's not the disparate people, members of the public, that are agitating.
All right, let me get to,
yeah, finally,
yeah, that's what I was
finally, I would say that I'm not here to convince anybody about government programs and policies and all that. But I want to make one point. If you say you have all these plans or everything, government is doing so many things and all that, and the ordinary people are not seeing it, there's a problem. There is a view that was canvassed just now by one of the panelists in Abuja, that the federal government has said that if you are not metered, nobody can collect money from you. That's not what is happening. Approximated bills are still being collected. And people are still facing the consequences of the failure of not just this government. Because we're talking about 20 years on, we are still talking about light, we are talking about petroleum products, we are talking about a number of things.
So let's close the program now, and let me get the final thought of my 2 panelists in Abuja. Just in a statement for each, Mr. Bisuga and Mr. Musa, in a statement each, your closing thought. That's going to be in 10 seconds each.
Nigerians should know that seeing is believing. Please go to www.survivalfundapplication.com and register. You don't need anybody in government to do so.
All right. Mr. Musa, in 10 seconds, your final words.
Yes. A labor leader should know that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. If they said they are doing this under because the law gives them the right to do so, then they should know that once a court issue an order, it must be obeyed. If they have a problem with the order, they should approach the court and have that order set aside.
We must do that because we need to close now. I must sincerely thank all of you for coming tonight. Mr. Sunusi Musa, Mr. Jiti Ogunye, and Mr. Seun Bisuga. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Well, that's our show for tonight. We are keeping tabs on what is happening at the presidential villa and the meeting within Labour and the federal government. So we Channel Television for the update. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean Kimberley. Bye-bye.